recording. So now everyone heard that this meeting is recorded. So I'll record this lecture, and we'll record the other lectures too in the course. And you will get the recordings in case you miss one lecture or you want to go back and see what we did. So with me, I have my colleague Rick, who will keep an eye on the chat while I'm chatting. And he'll interrupt me if there are any questions in the chat. He will bring that to my attention, and we will probably have some discussions about some of the contents as well. So it will be a bit more like a dialogue, I hope. So we'll get started. I hope everyone has made it here. So we have around 220 participants right now. So we'll see if some other people show up later. We had the worst case estimate of 450 participants. So we'll see if everyone wants to participate at the same time. So probably you've seen some of this material, at least some of you, depending on which program you're taking, because I gave some of these slides during these intro presentations that you had for your programs. But I'll go through the whole thing again, so everyone gets the full content. So the thing we will do in this course is a very, very short course. So we will learn 3 things: the terminal, version management, and tech. So I'll just quickly go through what that is, and then I'll take you through the course materials and what you should do during this course. So the first thing you should do is to learn to use the terminal, because this one will be a very useful tool throughout your studies and probably later in life as well. So if you haven't already gotten familiar with the terminal, you definitely will in this course. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with the terminal. For instance, this a line of code. So it's a few commands that are stringed together. So what this does is it counts the 10 most used words in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And after the first lab, you should be able to understand what this actually does, or you should be able to find out exactly what it does. The next thing we'll look at is version management, which is basically maintaining several different versions at the same time and keeping them usable and keeping track of what are the differences and being able to find out what are the differences in an easy way. So this is, of course, used a lot for code. So like we will use Git, which is the tool that's used to version manage the Linux kernel, which is a lot of code. And you can use it to version manage most things, actually, basically everything. Its interface is more useful for some things. So like binaries aren't particularly interesting to version manage because you can't easily find differences in them. So text documents, then you have a ton of tools in Git that are really useful. And finally, you will learn LaTeX, which is mostly known for writing well, advanced maths in a nice way and doing it easily. So the equation editor Word, I think, is renowned for the opposite thing. It's being very difficult and gives a very poor result. So you probably you will write quite a lot of maths during your studies. So LaTeX will be a very helping hand there, making your life much easier. We can also use LaTeX for doing other stuff, not just math. So the stuff you'll do in the lab is for writing reports, but you can write other stuff too. For instance, these slides are written in LaTeX too. So this is part of the source code to create the first set of slides that you saw. So the section what to learn, the subsection terminal, and here we include the picture of the terminal that you saw. And here is that cool example for the counting the words in Hitchhiker's Guide. So you can do a lot in LaTeX, and the main advantage is that you can focus on the content and not the layout, because it will fix the layout for you automatically and put it in a very nice way, and much better than you could achieve in Word or any other word processor. So the course itself, so all the material is available in Canvas. So probably you've all found your way into Canvas by now. If otherwise you would probably not be here. But anyway, canvas.kth.se is the way to go, and then you should be able to find the course named DD1301 there. If you're registered on the course, it should be there for you, and it will look something like this. So I'll go through, give you a short introduction to what it looks like in Canvas. So let's see, let me switch my share here. And there we have the main window. So I hope everyone can see my Firefox window now. So it should look something along these lines when you're a student. So I've set it to student mode, so it should look similar to how it looks for you. So basically, it's designed so that you can essentially start reading here and then just click next all the way through, and you will get there. So if you go into the overview, you will have some general information about the course. And yeah, you should read this. Yeah, you have the Zoom link and a link to the schedule and so on here. And if you click next, you will get to the next document, which has some instructions on how to get help during the lab hours. So if it's not a lab hour at the moment, then you can post something to the discussions in Canvas. So you can access that there. I have seen that some of you have already done that. So great that works. But you also have the lab hours, which is probably the more efficient way of getting help. So if you've looked at your schedule, you will see that there are some lab hours scheduled. And during this time, we will use Zoom. So we have some labs scheduled on campus, but that's in case you don't have your own computer, then you really need to go to KTH and use one of KTH computers. But if you have your own computer, you should be able to do this from home, which is the preferred way during the current circumstances. So since you're here in Zoom, then this should you shouldn't have any problem having Zoom. So what you do is you just open a new meeting to have some help there, and then you will have to invite the lab assistant to that meeting. So you can copy a URL which the lab assistants can use, and we will use the queue at KTH for this, so queue.csc.kth.sc. So you just go here, you don't need to log in or anything. You pick the DD1301 course, and in the location field here, you just paste that link that you just copied in Zoom. And then you can write a comment, what is your problem, very short description, and then you click join queue, and help will be on the way. So then someone will show up in your Zoom room once it's your turn. So it shouldn't be that difficult. Hopefully it will work. And then if you just continue, you will get some information about the lecture. So this is about today's lecture, and we will post a recording here once it has passed. So that's basically how Canvas works. And then you have some assignments here, like preparing the terminal, which I think some of you have started working with, because there was some discussions in the chat about how to install Windows subsystem for Linux, for instance. So if you just read this one, you have how to access KTH systems. I will show you a bit of that later. Particularly how to do it on a Linux, well, a Unix-like system, because it's pretty similar on Linux and Mac. It's a bit more inconvenient on Windows. So if you want to use your own system for the labs, then you can install Windows subsystem for Linux if you're not using a Unix-like system already. Otherwise, you can use KTH systems remotely, using the secure shell, so SSH. And I know some of you have tried this already too. And you can do that reasonably easy on Windows as well by installing PuTTY. And then you can just connect to the KTH system, and you will get a terminal looking something like this. So it should be quite straightforward, but we'll show you a bit of that in the end or later during this lecture. So yeah, that should give you an idea about how Canvas works. And you see here that these labs are, you're given points for them. So those you have to do. And right now you can mark them as completed once you've done them, so you know for yourself that you've done them. And we will check later that you actually have. So there's a module on collaboration, which covers Git and how to do stuff together in the terminal. And finally, LaTeX, which is the final part. So I think I won't say any more about Canvas and the content there. For when it comes to the lab assignments, so you need to do them to pass. And the way we need to check that you have done them. And yeah, we can see you in KTH system. So we can see if you have signed in over SSH, which is one of the assignments. So you should sign in. And the way the assignments are done, we can eventually check that you have done everything, if you have done everything correctly. So just follow the lab assignments. You won't get any feedback directly after you've done it. We will check later. So once you've done something, yeah, go on and do the next thing. And then we'll check that everything is done. So that's about that. Do you have any things you'd like to add, Rick?
Yeah, just a couple of things popped up in chat whilst you were just talking through that. So there's a question from Eamon asking, are we supposed to find our lab partners on our own? And I believe in this course it's mostly solo work, but you can find a TA.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's totally fine to do everything yourself. Of course, it's nice to discuss things with other people, but you can do the assignments on your own. That's fine.
Also, is the course online or also available at the school? So I guess in terms of labs, we actually have lab rooms booked people can go to.
Yes, if absolutely necessary. But it's designed in a way so that you can do it entirely online, and we want to keep as little crowd as possible on campus. I don't know if we have booked enough rooms to cover the entire class if everyone wants to go to the labs physically, because we counted a bit on that. some people would at least have their own computer and would be able to do this from home. And even if you go to the lab, the TAs won't be in the lab. So you will still have to use Zoom in KTH labs to get help. And then I don't know how it is with speakers. So if you do that, make sure to bring headphones or something or a headset so that you have a working microphone and speakers. Otherwise, you might it might be uncomfortably silent, that aid.
Yeah. Another question came in there from Emil, and that was, is the examination of the course the assignments in Canvas?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So the assignments in Canvas, those are the things that you should do. And if you pass all those, you've passed the course and you will get your credits.
Yeah. Final one, Felix just remarking about the access to the GitHub organization.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I can hold my hand up and say that I'm responsible for the tool that should add everyone to the organization. And we just discovered a bug earlier today, but we did fix it. And I think this evening we will update the GitHub organization so that everyone can actually submit that part of the work. If you're already that far ahead, although given that it's just halfway through the first lecture, that's quite far ahead. So for people who are wondering what the hell that is, no stress. We just have some early adopters finding out the bugs, so we can fix them for the rest of you. So there should be no worries there, Felix. That has been fixed, or will be fixed later today. Let's say later today.
Exactly.
Okay, I think that was it.
That was it. Okay, good. Then we can proceed to the next part, which is looking into this a bit. So I split that out to a separate slide deck, actually. So yeah, the terminal, like I said, this is the tool we are going to use and play around with, and you'll have a lot of use of it in the end. So there are some instructions in Canvas for how to do this. So if you want to use this on your own computer, I think the easiest way, even if you want to use run it on your own system, it's nice. Or if you want to SSH into KTH systems, it might be more convenient in the long term to run Windows subsystem for Linux because you can do a lot more things there. For instance, you can do X11 forwarding, which means you can forward graphical user interfaces over SSH to your local system, which doesn't work if you just use PuTTY that I pointed to earlier. And if you use Linux, yeah, probably you already know what to do. But if you use a Mac, then maybe you're only familiar with the graphical user interface. So just search for the program called Terminal, and then you'll find a terminal that looks exactly like this, and it will solve your problems. And in the absolute worst case, if you need to find one of these computer rooms, so there is a room specified in the schedule, just go to kth.sc/places, and you should be able to find a map to that computer room on campus, so you can go there. But that's if you don't have a computer at home, go there. If you do have a computer at home, then it's probably best if you stay home and use your own computer. So SSH into KTH computer systems. So the server that you can use is called studentshell.sys.kth.se. And funnily enough, I don't have access to that one since I'm an employee, so I have to use another server. And you should log in with your normal KTH username and password, and that should work. So I know in the instructions, I've written this line, ssh studentshell.sys.kth.se. However, if you have another username on your computer than your KTH username, then this will not work, because then it will try the username that you have on your computer, and then it won't work. So an alternative way is to write your username at, and then in front of this, so it looks more like an email address. So let's see if I can actually draw that in while I'm at it. So just write the user at and then student shell. And so on. And that should work for you. So let's play around with the terminal and show you a bit how it works.
Can you just go back to the previous page just for a second?
Oh, sure. Let's see. I'll
Thank you.
reshare that one and go there. So username, at, and then student shell, and the rest of the address here. Then it should work for you. Okay, everyone done taking their notes?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. So let's get a terminal here and play around a bit. Should be this terminal. So everyone can see a terminal now.
Yes.
Everyone can see that?
Yeah.
Good. And it's a decent size to see that you actually can read it, or is it too small or anything?
Looks awesome.
Perfect. I bumped up the font size a bit to make sure it shouldn't be too small. So basically, when you find that terminal programs, either if you have used SSH to get into KTH systems, you will get something that looks like this. I think in many cases the background might be black, and so it's inverted colors, but I find it kind of nice to have a white background. It gives better contrast when reading text in bright sunlight and stuff like that. So I've adapted my terminal a bit, and probably you will too eventually. So to log into KTH, you will do something like this. Well, in my case, I can't use student shell, so I will have to use faculty shell. And look at how little I had to write to do that. So you, the first thing people might think about text-based interfaces like this is that, gosh, I have to type everything. But I'll show you that actually you don't have to type that much actually. And then you can log in. In my case, I've already set up my computing system to be able to log in without a password. So there are some instructions. If you're a hardcore terminal user, you can find those instructions on KTH. Otherwise, it's perfectly fine to not having set that up, and it will ask you for your password. So right now I'm logged into KTH systems. So I can type commands here and it will do stuff for me. Some of the very useful commands that we have, well, that you should remember is the command man, because this will show you manual pages for various commands. So now it wants me to specify which, I didn't specify any command. So let's read the manual page for the man command. So then we write the command following. And if we press enter now, it will bring up the manual page for this command. And then we can see here that it's an interface to the online reference manuals, so that you can actually read manuals about different commands. And you see down here that you just press the button Q to quit. So we do that, and then we are back. So that's one of the very useful commands. So I know there are some commands to do things. So let's check what the ls command does. And it says it lists directory contents. So usually it has a very brief summary at the top, and then a bigger description, and then it describes all the parameters you can pass to it. So it says here you can pass some options, and then you can pass some files, and these are part of the options. Describes them here, so you can use those. But let's try to just run the ls command as it is. And as we saw in the description, it will list directory contents. So now it's listing the contents of the current directory I'm in, which is actually my home directory. So if we use the pwd command, well, let's see what it's supposed to do first. It prints the name of the current working directory. So it shows us where we are. So currently we're in my home directory. My username is dbosk, same as my email address. So that way we can keep track of where we are, and we can create directories by the command mkdir, so short for make directory. And let's see how to use it. So it says that, okay, we use the command, we can pass some options if we like, and then we specify a directory. And these options are within these square brackets here. So those are optional, we don't have to give them, but the directory is actually mandatory since it's just given like that. So let's try. Okay, we specify it without anything. Okay, so it says missing operand. So if we create the datintro20 directory and we do an ls, then we see that, okay, now we actually have datintro here. It wasn't available here. And then we can use cd as in change directory to go into this directory. Now you see that it's actually part of my prompt where I am, so I get some sense of orientation here, but it doesn't print the full one for me. To get the full one, I can use pwd, and then we see that we are actually in home dbosk and datintro20. So there are lots of useful commands like this. And you have a list of commands to try out in the instruction. So all these commands that I'm showing you now, they are there. So you have a list there, so you can go and play around with them.
So Daniel, can I
Yes.
break in here? There's a couple of questions coming up there about the kind of difference between whenever you start a terminal session, it's on your own computer. Mm-hmm. So you usually see in your prompt like a local machine name. So I think we had Niels had his, he copied and pasted his, it's a private chat message to me, but he has this kind of complicated prompt. But you first see your own computer, and then we're connecting to a remote computer. But the nice thing about that is that it looks exactly the same. So once you log in via Student Shell to a KTH computer, you're essentially you've commuted into KTH and sat down at a computer and logged on, except without all that hassle, which is the kind of nice thing about this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way I can keep my orientation to see that I'm actually in KTH is because I've configured my prompt here to include the host name that I'm currently on. So if I actually type exit here, we see that it changed to debosk at X1, which is my laptop. So there I can keep my orientation. And it's really neat. I mean, the KTH server is running Ubuntu, same as on my laptop, so it's exactly the same things I have in both places. So I can do quite a lot of neat stuff and just continue working, but on the KTH system, just as if I would be there myself. Anything else from the chat?
We had a bit of a discussion there about so directory and folder. They're basically the same thing, but it's, I guess in the Windows world, we talk about folders all the time. We don't really talk about directories. But with the Unix command set, cd change directory, or as you had there, mkdir make directories. So it's kind of, yeah, it's same thing.
Yeah, exactly. They are basically synonymous. I think directory is the old ancient term that was originally used, and then once you had Windows 95 and onwards, and more people started using it, I mean, then you got an icon for it, and it looked like a folder. So I suppose that's where that name comes from. So I would guess that directory is actually the original name, because also on Windows you have the cd command to change directories if you use the native Windows command prompt. So there is a command prompt also on Windows, but the commands are different. So that's why we encourage you to use the KTH system or install Windows subsystem for Linux to run Ubuntu there, because then everyone is speaking the same language and using the same tools. So that's much easier.
Also, a couple of good questions about when you actually log into the KTH computers and say you create a few files and then log out again, will they still be there when you go back again?
Yes, they will. Let's see. Yeah, my datintro is still here despite me logging off and logging on again. So this file system that you get on the SSH computers, that's actually a file system that you can access when you're logged in to any computer on KTH. And I think they might actually have a web interface for accessing those files too. But I never use that, so I don't remember how to access it. But you have some storage space on KTH systems, and it's of course limited, so you can't put super much stuff there. I don't remember if it's a gigabyte or 2 or something like that. I know that it should be approximately like 2 gigabytes for me as staff, because I just checked previously that with this command, so fs as in file system, and then you can have quota is the subcommand, which lets you check how much of your space you've used, and I've used 27% of mine. And then I used another command, which is du, disk usage. And then I checked the size of my home folder. So the dot here is the current folder, and the options I pass here is Edge for human readable form, because otherwise I'll get this in bytes and I want it in megabytes or gigabytes or whatever is more suitable. And S will just give me a summary, so otherwise it would print the disk usage of every file in this directory, which is not what I want. So let's see, I'll try to run this. And then it says it's 522 megabytes that I'm using. So it should be about 2 gigabytes that I have as staff anyway on the KTH system.
One thing, just whilst we've seen a couple of commands, I think it's always, I mean, for people who have not seen a terminal interface before, I can remember just looking at this my first time going like, what? Why is it FS? Why is it DU? And it's such a compact representation. And I mean, you appear to be pulling these things out of thin air, you know, like I want to see my disk usage, DU, you know, I want to see the menu for tonight's meal menu, you know, but it's there's a learning barrier or a curve to using a terminal. And I would understand if a lot of people were feeling, uh-oh, this looks a bit harder than I expected, but there is value to persevering with this. And yeah,
exactly. So I can say about the shortness of them, and like DU for disk usage. So when they made these, of course, they didn't want to type too much, so they made them as short as possible to not have to write too much. So for instance, there is a copy command, so that's CP, and you do that quite a lot, so you want it as short as possible. And then of course you can move stuff, which is MV, so move. And then you can remove stuff, which is RM for remove. And I showed you the man command, so to get the manual page. There is actually another command which is really useful for searching how to do stuff, and that's apropos. So then you can, okay, I want to print something, and then it will give you all the manual pages which hits the keyword print. And as you can see, that was quite a lot. So another useful command or another useful construction with the terminal is that you can pipe output. So if I have this command again, apropos print that I had, I can pipe this output, and this is just a vertical bar. So it's like the alt graph key and then smaller than, bigger than. It's approximately there, left of the Z on a Swedish keyboard. There you can get it. And then you can pipe that output to another command. And one very useful command is less, which actually lets you scroll through the output like this. So now we can actually read the entire output in our own pace and see what actually fits our needs. So now there are lots of stuff that fit the word printing, but here we get, like, I hit print files. Yeah, maybe I want to print files. So let's read what LP does. And yeah, so this actually submits stuff to the physical printer. And this is not that useful on the KTH system because there's no printer directly connected to this server. But if you're on a computer which has a printer connected to it, you can use this command to print files on it. So you can actually do pretty much everything with the terminal. So let's go back into the .intro folder. And now I was typing super fast again, as you saw. So what I actually did was I typed the command CD, which is the one I want, and then I typed DA, and then I hit the tab character, and then it wrote the rest. So this is called tab completion, which is kind of addictive once you get used to it, because that means you just have to write the first few characters, and then you hit tab, and it will usually complete the rest, because usually there is no ambiguities. If we look here, I have two folders starting with DO, documents and downloads. So if I write DO and then I hit tab, if I hit it once, nothing happens. If I hit it twice, it will give the two options that I have. So in this case, yeah, I'm interested in documents. So I just hit a C and then tab again, and it works. So usually you don't have to type particularly much if you use tab completion. Then you don't, yeah, like now, if it was these documents and downloads, I just had to write 3 characters, the first 3 of the name of the directory, and then hit tab, and it fixed the rest for me. When it came to the datintro.
Daniel, I'll just jump in because we're about 4 minutes left.
Yes.
I think there's been quite a lot of technical questions, which I'm recommending if people have technical questions, like you cannot connect or you're getting some sort of connection error, send a message to Canvas with like a screenshot of the terminal or the text that led up to it so we can see what's happening. And then if others have the same problem, we can share the solution in a common place. Also, which quite importantly, Axel asks, is the deadline for preparing the terminal assignment due for tomorrow?
So I put some deadlines there, and that was just to give you a sense of, okay, I should start and try to hit this deadline. But if you miss it, yeah, we won't hold it against you. But if you keep the deadlines, then you will have an easy course. Otherwise, you might postpone things, and then by the end of the course, when the last lab sessions are, then you start doing stuff. Then once the last lab session passed, you won't have any help anymore. So try to hit these deadlines, because then help will be available while you're trying to solve the problems.
Yeah, I think that's one of our main problems in this course is resource availability. So if you have a problem and the TAs are dealing with a long queue of people and it's the final September the 4th deadline and you're trying to do everything at once, then it's a high risk strategy. You can do that if you want, but it's like we said, it's high risk if you hit a problem and then you can't fix it. We are, of course, this course is operating under different circumstances than normal, so I think we will also be a little bit accepting of people who've had problems, just because we need to ourselves work out what works and how to solve problems. I would highly recommend people post problems to Canvas, try to formulate a clear problem, and then other people to read the problems people are having in case you know how to fix it or you have the same problem, so we don't have a lot of repetition. Okay, just going to scan through the chat. Some of the commands you showed today, would it be possible to get a summary, just like a Canvas post sort of saying, here are the commands we used today, just with like a short...
Yeah, actually they are in the assignment about the terminal. There we have a list of the commands that I experimented with now, and some more that you can do other things with. So like you will have some commands for editing files, and that can be useful for you.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess the official time is up. But yes. Of course, I don't actually know if the students have another class to go to. Sadly, we're missing the normal tradition of being able to come down and ask us questions at the end of the lecture before the next one starts. So if people do have somewhere else to go, I guess they can go.
Yes. Otherwise, yeah, try. If you have any questions before we finish, then feel free to ask them. You can use the microphone too.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Just based on this particular thing we just did, what are we supposed to take with us? Just log into the server and these commands, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Log into the server and play around.
And then we'll continue tomorrow during the lab, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in the lab, the only thing that you should be able to do is play around with some commands, and I think it says specified in the instruction that one command that you should execute is the history command, and actually save that history to a file, because you might reuse it in later labs. But if you just follow the instruction,
Perfect.
you will know exactly how to do it and where to put it and so on.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question too. On our schedule, the lab, there is actually a room number. Spelhallen.
Yeah, exactly.
It stands Spelhallen. So
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it just for those who doesn't have their own computers, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
More questions?
I thought that was quite a good one. Maybe it's I'm replying to Joel here, and he's asked what are the advantages of learning the terminal.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I can tell you, so a short answer is I use the terminal every day for basically everything. I use Firefox for web browsing, but otherwise I basically use the terminal. I check my email in the terminal. I write all documents in the terminal. I do, yeah, literally everything except viewing web pages and reading PDFs in the terminal.
I think I'm the opposite. I'm a Mac user. I do everything using shiny, flashy, graphical user interfaces, but I still use the terminal for, like, if I'm doing important jobs, if I'm writing source code, I'm interacting with version control, I do everything through the terminal. Even recently, I had a situation where I was going to be without internet connectivity for 2 weeks. And I was following a streamer on Twitch, and I wanted to download all of the streams that I was going to miss because they were going to drop off the 60-day backlog or archive limit. So Twitch drops your recorded streams after 60 days, and I was trying to catch up. So I found a command line command line utility called Streamlink that just let me write commands to basically copy and download all the streams that I was possibly going to miss when I didn't have internet. And it was super good. It was just like, it was one line Streamlink, URL of the stream, the bitrate, the resolution I wanted, everything, and then the file to save it to. And I had like all these things running and downloading, and it was super useful. So I'm kind of, I'm on the mostly graphical side, but I know the value of a good terminal set of skills. So I still think it's like, unlike Daniel, who's like the kind of archetypal Unix all the way, I'm the opposite, but I still feel the value. And yeah, if you're doing any technical subject where you're going to have technical applications, writing source code, data analysis, any of that sort of stuff, running physics simulations, programming in R for statistical work, all this stuff runs in command line. So it's super nice to use. And if you get good at it, you become really efficient, and you can impress all your friends.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's one thing I'd like to say about that is that it's very deterministic, the terminal. So you can usually control much more things than you can that you're allowed in a GUI, and you can change things easily and retry them much more easily, other than going through a configuration graphical user interface.
Yeah.
So there are lots of advantages of knowing the terminal.
I think even like in the current COVID-19 remote working, like knowing how to be able to just to log on to a work computer, do things that other people aren't able to do is quite a powerful skill. And my kind of, when I was younger, sort of battle story with terminal was when I was doing my PhD, and I was able to start a process on 50 different computers in a lab by writing a single 4-line piece of code. So it would go around 50 computers, start a process, gather results, and send them back to my computer. And I can just imagine the poor person who doesn't know how to use a terminal trying to turn on 50 computers, start 50 processes. And it's just like, okay, there is an efficiency you get with the terminal that you cannot get with graphical applications, especially when it's very exotic things you're wanting to do.
So just a question for the schedule tomorrow again.
Mm-hmm.
So see that we finish at 3 o'clock and the computer lab is at 3 o'clock as well. Is it okay to go to Spelhallen if you want to sit at the campus, or shall we choose another place at the campus then, like the library? So.
Great question. I suppose you attend Farkostteknik.
Yep.
Yeah. So we actually had so your program manager noticed that complication that we had in the schedule. So the thing that we are going to do, the schedule hasn't been updated yet, but we are going to update it so that the schedule will be from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock instead, and the TAs will keep you company in Zoom during that time, so that you have time to go home unless you absolutely need to stay at KTH to use KTH computers. So that's the solution that we have for that. So it should update the schedule sometime soon.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
So let's see, there are some more questions in the chat here I need to catch up with. So someone asked if there's a downside to the Unix-like interface on Windows instead of the real Linux or Mac OS. So if you use Windows subsystem for Linux, then basically you are running an Ubuntu, so a Linux system, inside your Windows. So it's exactly the same thing. However, if you mean the command line prompt in Windows, the native one, then well, you can do quite a lot of stuff in that one too. It's just different commands that you need to use, and we don't have any instructions for them. So the more common one is the Unix-like interface. So use WSL if you're on a Windows computer. That's our recommendation, or at least SSH into KTH, so you can use the interface there. So advantage of using Firefox? Well, I don't know. It's open source. That's the quick, short answer. Otherwise, yeah, other browsers are also good. There are more open source browsers than just Firefox, but at least Firefox has very wide adoption, so there are lots of cool stuff to Firefox. I suppose that's the main reason I would use it. So let's see if there are anything else.
Okay. There's some people seem to be saying they've got a collision with the lab tomorrow. So I guess in the worst case, it's okay. You don't. The 1301 labs are remote in principle.
Yeah. So actually, the labs there are some explanation. It depends on which schedule you're looking at, because I know there are lab sessions that are scheduled for some of the programs and other lab sessions scheduled for other programs. So for instance, this one at 3 o'clock tomorrow that I said we will move to 4 o'clock. That one is scheduled only for Farkostteknik, for instance. And then there is another one for Teknisk Fysik and Teknisk Matematik. I don't remember if both of those programs have the same lab session or if they too have separate ones. But if you check in KTH Social, so instead of using the schedule for the course, if you just look at the schedule for the course, you will see everything, including for other programs. So check the schedule for your program, and then you should have some lab sessions which doesn't collide for you.
I have some questions about installing Linux on, or the Linux on Windows supplement so that I can use the terminal, since I don't have it. And I tried to follow the instructions that you had uploaded to Canvas, but it seems that the Windows Store has been updated since the instructions was written, so I can't really follow them because they don't say the same thing.
Okay. And then, yeah, then we have to look into that. I'll see if I can get a Windows system to run an experiment on. But
the chat is saying that I should download Ubuntu. So there is one called just Ubuntu. Is it?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
My dad knows all about this, but he's not home. So.
Yeah, so probably it shouldn't deviate too much from the instruction. It might not be exactly the same if they've changed some stuff, but the principles should probably be similar. I noticed just before here this session, I saw that it's possible to follow an instruction from Ubuntu directly, which links to the Microsoft Store and tells you how to do it.
Okay.
So there are probably many ways to achieve the same goal.
Yeah.
But start a discussion in Canvas so that everyone who wants to install this Windows subsystem for Linux have one go-to place to discuss what works and what not, and then I'll try to see if I can find some way to find this out myself, so I can give you a verified solution.
Yeah.
So someone writes in the chat here that Ubuntu is the right program. Just download that and you are set.
Yeah. Felix said that the 20.04 is probably recommended. Do you think that I should download the 20.4 version?
Yeah, go for that.
There are some different ones. So do you think there's any difference in?
2004 is a good version to go for. That's the one I'm running on my laptop too. So that's the latest long-term support version. So you can run that one without having to get a newer version of Ubuntu at some later point. So you can run that one for a few years probably.
That's enough for me probably. Thank you very much. But a discussion in Canvas.
Yep.
Okay, I have a question. After downloading the Ubuntu thingy, can you just log into the KTH servers, or like by typing that things you said?
Yeah, exactly. So if you have Ubuntu installed on your Windows computer there, just open Ubuntu and then you start a terminal and then just type SSH and then your username at studentshell.sys.kth.se and that should work.
Okay, but how do you check that you're logged in?
It doesn't complain.
It doesn't complain, okay.
Yeah, basically that's one thing I can say about the Unix command design philosophy. If it doesn't say anything, it worked. It will only tell you something if something's wrong. So it will give you an error message if something is wrong. But when you log into Student Shell, you will just get a new prompt. And if there are no error messages in between, then you're fine. Then you're on KTH systems.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, welcome.
I tried to type in the SSH command and got an error message saying SSH could not resolve host name or service not known.
Okay, then it seems like it doesn't have an internet connection. Or you have some spelling error somewhere.
All right, okay, I will try again. Thanks.
Yeah, so I've seen in the chat there are several people that have this connection closed. So if you have that problem, make sure that you've written your username correctly. I don't know if the username is case sensitive. Traditionally, you write everything in lowercase, so I don't know if that makes a difference. Otherwise, as they say in the chat here, maybe you type the password incorrectly. So try again in that case. Okay. Good point, Felix. That yeah, you get permission denied in that case. So in that case, maybe make sure that you have actually registered for the course, because that might also be a problem, because maybe your user account isn't activated, but it should be since you got your username.
But I'm pretty sure that I'm registered.
Okay.
Just to make sure, the username, it's the four-letter username, not the whole email address or something.
It's everything before the @ sign.
Yeah, all right.
So everything except @kth.se.
Well, I'm pretty sure that I've written the correct username.
Okay, so someone else, another Felix here, writes that you can get connection closed if you get permission denied a couple of times first. So probably they have a system against password guessing, which if you keep hammering on the door with the wrong password, you might get blocked. I don't know if usually those are time limited, so that like you have to wait for half an hour or something, and then it should work. If it doesn't, then I guess you have to email the IT department and ask. So what are their email, Rick? Do you have that one in your head?
For the IT support?
Yeah.
It's IT-support@KTH. So,
okay.
But I would imagine they're probably getting hammered with a lot of things. Again, this is maybe the importance of, if we can use Canvas, the discussions area in Canvas, and then if people can put like a good cannot connect and then the message, so other people can find I'm having the same thing. And then, because these things never go super smooth. Some people are going to connect first time, other people are going to get strange things. And there's so many different combinations of user setups, network, blah, 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 stuff going on at KTH, that we can only really try to gather the most common problems and then try to fix those. So if you can go to Canvas and the discussion, I think, Daniel, if you're still sharing your screen, no, maybe not. No. You can see people, I've already asked some people to go ahead and post their problems on Canvas, and that's probably going to be the easiest way we fix that.
Exactly. I think so too. Currently, I have to go and fetch my daughter from kindergarten, so I have to go any moment now. But if you go to discussions in Canvas, you see that there are already some discussions. So for instance, one is this connection closed when attempting to connect, and another one is permission denied for a future lab. So see what discussions there are if someone else has your problem, and in that case see what they have discussed and what they've done. And if there is nothing, then add a new discussion and try to be very specific with the problem and add a good description of what you've done and what outcome you expected and what outcome you got. So we can try to troubleshoot this more easily. So I think that's the easiest approach at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we have sort of crashed over our bonus 15 minutes, and Daniel has to go, as he said. Thank you, everyone, for all the questions in chat. I was trying to keep up, but it was super difficult. So if you didn't get your question answered and you can't find the solution on the Canvas discussions, use the lab of time tomorrow to connect with a teaching assistant, and then you can have a one-on-one conversation to try to fix your particular problem. So hopefully those labs should help as well. And
exactly,
we'll try to, I guess the next lecture is
I think it's Friday morning, actually.
Friday morning. We'll try to have a bit of a recap of what we've learned in the last couple of days. Okay, so I'll leave it over to Daniel for final words.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for showing up, and I'll try to post the recording of today's session as soon as possible, probably tomorrow morning at the latest. And then you have the lab sessions for help, and use the discussion section in Canvas to discuss these problems. That will, because then other students who might have solved this problem can help you, which is probably faster for yourself too. And if someone else has the same problem as you, then you two can experiment together, and maybe one of you will solve it, and then everyone will benefit. So with that, I conclude today, and we'll be in touch. So see you in Canvas and in Zoom on Friday at the latest. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.